Hello there, and welcome to Sweet Child of Time. I'm your host, Steve Barnes. Today we are recapping Dark Season 3, Episode 2. This one is The Survivors. I'm here with my co host for my Dark recaps. As usual, you know her from one of my stories, her website, and she's also the Facebook moderator for the Dark Ways group. That's probably what it is. Yep, it's Lindsay Dunn. Ahoy there, Lindsay.
Ahoy, Steve. We're just surviving in the
I
apocalypse.
swear. It's not even the apocalypse yet, and I still feel like I'm in survivor mode. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm doing good. I shouldn't say. I was like, it's a holiday week. We don't have to say what holiday it is, just in case this gets released earlier or later. But yes, I have a short work week, so that's kind of fun. So today was my last day of work for the week, and it's only Tuesday.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay, yeah. Should be that way for me too, but I got to work tomorrow, and yeah, I'm gonna name drop this holiday. This episode will probably be released on Thanksgiving 2023. And yeah, this ties in with Survivor mode. I just found out today, like just a couple hours ago, that I will be hosting Thanksgiving, about 20 people at my house. Not prepared.
Oh my.
In the least bit. So please pray for me, listeners. I hope this all goes well because I'm a serious introvert and I'm very anxious about this. And Heather's very anxious about this, but I guess we'll get through it. Can't be any worse than Ulrich's anniversary party, right?
Well, Ulrich's anniversary or the funeral that we get to see
Oh
at
yeah.
at Tron's house.
Yeah, we'll have nothing like that scene. I hope nothing like that goes down where Heather takes that moment to yell at me about something, something really personal and intense that makes everybody uncomfortable. Yeah, that's
So
not going to
20
happen.
people. That's intense though. That is intense. May the force be
Mhm.
with you.
Thank you. We're scared. Thank you. But yeah, we've been talking dark already today. We were talking with Tash. We've been talking about some stuff from season 2. And I know we're going to get on to season 3 here. Um, I heard something about the unknown. What did I hear about him today, Lindsay? What do you got to bring up about that fella?
Yes, last week you talked about the fact that how much you hate the unknown. You don't like him as a
Hmm.
character.
Yeah.
But one thing I meant to point out in the first recap, and I'll remind people when we get to it because we see them in this episode as well.
Hmm.
This episode, we see the unknown at least once. And one thing I'm finding interesting is so far, whenever the unknown speaks, he speaks in quotes. The only thing he says are quotes, some of them that were
Mm.
used at the beginning of the episode. But it's almost like he doesn't have part of his character's lack of agency is
Oh,
that he only seems to be speaking the thoughts of others. I believe
that's
last
interesting.
episode he said the quote that like Noah did, nothing is wasted. He used that
Yeah.
quote. So anytime he's opened his mouth so far, he only speaks in quotes.
Interesting. That seems correct. He also, like, you're talking about his agency and how he is. He just hangs out with himself, his older self and his younger self.
Mhm.
And it seems like that older, younger, and middle-aged self all have the same mannerisms. We haven't heard his older or younger self speak, right? Like the
We
young
have
kid
I
didn't talk
think
to
I
Burnt.
think the young one might have spoke last episode when he hung out with Byrne for a little bit before the other two showed up.
I don't remember him saying anything. That's what I was, really racking my brain about. Because
He
yeah, I imagine if we hear them speak later, I don't remember if we do or not, but I wonder if they're going to be speaking quotes as well. That's really neat. I want to see if that's consistent. He doesn't have any like of his own thoughts or his own I don't know impetus of himself. He's just
Yeah. Well, there's
repeating
this
what.
whole allegory with the play Ariadne and the
Okay.
unknown could be like the Minotaur or the monster in the maze.
Wow.
And so there's this concept of a play within a play. So one of my thoughts is the unknown almost like a character in a play? And so that he's almost like a generic um we never did our episode on Tenet, Steve, but for instance,
Correct.
that the lead character's name is the protagonist. And
Right.
so he's almost like an archetype for a character. So I was thinking the unknown could be sort of an archetype in that he's in that character. He's been given a character or a personality almost rather than having something of his own. So I just found that really interesting. And I'm wondering how it'll play out the rest of the time we see him. Will he always be saying these quotes that we've heard throughout the show?
I'm glad you brought this up because it gives me something to look forward to when I see him. Because when I see him, I just feel like this, like, oh, is this guy again? So now I can like be like, okay, let me see what he's got to say. So that's, I'm glad I like, I'll like kind of reverse my way of thinking, and maybe he won't be my least favorite every episode. We'll
Yeah,
see. But yeah, I think we're ready to get on to the recap. Is that correct, Lindsay?
I think we're ready.
I think we're going to talk about the unknown pretty soon here. Oh, I really hope he's in the first scene. Is he?
No, I don't think he is.
Oh, darn it. I can't wait to see that scoundrel.
All right, so season 3, episode 2, The Survivors. The episode opens with the familiar image of Marta and Jonas in the throes of sex. And something I wondered for the first time last night as I was watching this episode, Steve, which I
Mhm.
haven't wondered before, is that a body double? I know it doesn't matter, but I'm like, is that
I
really Lewis Hoffman's shapely bum? Or
It's funny because I was thinking the same thing too. I was like, I do not think he's that shapely. I do think this is a body double. Absolutely. I mean, I
all
wasn't
right,
going to bring it up at all, but since you pointed it out, I thought about it too.
just a fun fact for us to open up with.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But wait,
Marta's
before we go
oh,
on
go
though,
ahead.
why they, if that's the case, we should hate him because, Francisca and Marta and Hannah and like Ulrich and everybody else is like, it's obviously their body because we get full
Mhm.
body shots. So what is Louis scared? What's going on, Louis?
Well, normally we see him in the we definitely can tell it's him. Sometimes you don't see one of the person's face, but eventually we'll see him. But this was the first moment where
Hmm.
I almost thought it was on Stranger Jonas. It just it
Okay.
didn't look like him, so yeah. But
I agree.
there are other times we have seen him in the actual
Hmm.
episode. But I think we're getting a little bit in the weeds here about this topic. So I'm going to move on.
Yes.
Okay. Marta is enjoying the moment, but then sees flashes of images like bloody hands holding the St. Christopher's pendant, herself in the yellow raincoat with blood splatters everywhere, washing the blood off her hands and holding the hands of someone who is dead. Alt Marta wakes with a start. She's in World 1, 1888, with the cut under her left eye. Any thoughts before we?
Oh, I think all those images that they showed us, I don't think we've seen any of those images yet. So I think that's just stuff yet to come, I suppose. So that's all I had to say about that. I'll let you move on to somebody creepily watching her like people like to do in the show.
And in this room, or at least in this building, we've seen
Right.
different people hanging out in the chair, lurking nearby. So, Stranger Jonas sits in a chair nearby, and like you mentioned, Steve, it's a very clear allusion to how Adam was sitting nearby when young Jonas was there, or Noah was there when young Jonas. So people sit in this room, and now it's Stranger Jonas sitting in the chair nearby, waiting for Alt Marta to awake, just like Adam and Noah did to young Jonas.
Hmm.
This image was a little confusing to me because the bed is pushed up against the right side of the wall,
Mm-hmm.
but then I thought, "Okay, maybe this is in another bedroom, like, perhaps the bedroom on the other side of the building, because this isn't
Yeah.
the bedroom that stranger Jonas sleeps in, which is probably the same bedroom." So that at first initially, it was confusing to me because I was
Mm-hmm.
wondering why the bed was pushed up on that side of the wall when that was the mirror world's side of the
Right.
wall for when Martha woke up,
Exactly.
but I think it's just another bedroom on the other side of the house.
That's the exact same image I got too, because I know like how they build these old houses, like, like our house is like that as well. Like we have identical like little closets on the side and the bedrooms are kind of identical on each side. But it is confusing, especially when they just showed us last episode this mirror world where things were opposite. Now they're doing the exact same thing. And
Mhm,
maybe they're having fun with us because obviously we both noticed that and
mhm.
commented on it. I wrote it down to comment on it too. So, I mean, I think they're throwing at us intentionally. They're messing with us.
We're so in sync. We're both thinking about Lewis's butt and the side of the room the bed's on. Alright, so Stranger Jonas is looking at the letter that T. Noah gave him before the apocalypse, supposedly from Marta. He puts it
Mhm.
back in his pocket and tells her to get dressed. Nearby, a chair holds a set of era appropriate clothes.
I'll let you continue. I don't have much to interrupt
Yeah.
there.
Again, fun little repeat when Adam said, get dressed to Jonas and had his raincoat, khakis, and white shirt.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, didn't you learn from that, Stranger Jonas? Like when Adam did that to you and gave you clothes and said, get dressed and walked out of the room. Like, why did you want to mirror that?
Yeah.
you know, why not a good morning? I mean, I don't know.
I think it's showing that
It's mood
that old
setting.
well, the theme that there are these fates and the cycles and the repeating
Absolutely.
images. Yeah.
Yes. I understand. I'm having fun. But I do understand. Like I love all the similarities. I love pointing them out and doing the
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio meme every time it happens. Hey, Steve from Sweet Shot of Time here to tell you about our latest sponsor, which is Zencastr. It's how we do our podcasts now. Zencastr is great for connecting with others because I can connect with other people. I got them all on screen with me. I can record them super easy. And the best thing about Zencastr is to me, the best thing is it records locally. So if I'm recording with someone and their Wi-Fi connection is weak or they're cutting in and out or something, it will still record everything they said perfectly. I might not be able to hear it while we're recording, but in the edit, all of it's there. I love it so much for that reason. I always get a good, strong connection with Zencastr. It really makes it really easy to edit the podcasts afterwards. And I guess the main thing about Zencastr is, for me, it's free because I'm sponsored by them. But for you, you can start off getting 30% off if you use my promo code, which is Sweet Child of Time, and you can start out with that 30% off coupon. Now, there's some stuff that I have to tell you, and I'm going to tell you right now. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SweetShot of Time, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. If you want to have the same easy experience I do for all my podcasting and content needs, it's time to share your story. Woo! Sweet Shot of Time is sponsored by Promoco RVA. Recreational use of marijuana is now legal in Virginia. But where do you get it? Google up Promoco RVA, that's spelled Promoco RVA, and schedule services with these guys. Sweet Shot of Time can vouch for their professionalism and their products. They have wide varieties of vapes, flower, edibles, everything you can think of, and they're open from Monday to Saturday from 11 to 7. You can schedule your own appointment at your convenience, get verified online, and it's that simple. Promoco RVA for your Richmond, Virginia needs. Or if you're in DC, you can visit their storefront at 1813 18th Street Northwest. Or just check out the link in this description notes. Hey, Promoco, thanks.
So Marta comes downstairs wearing the clothes and enters the laboratory.
Laboratory.
Inside, Stranger Jonas stands with Bartosz, Magnus, and Franziska. As promised, he saved them, and all four safely arrived in 1888.
Nice.
Yeah. They stare and wonder how long have they been there now, since in other parts of the episode, it's September 22nd. More than likely, it is here too, and it's been a little over 3 months.
That
This was
seems right
my
to me
little
too.
calculation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Magnus comes forward to hug her. They all look genuinely happy to see her. But then Stranger Jonas throws cold water on the whole thing and informs them that this isn't the Marta they know. She confirms this truth, but she's there to make things right so that you don't die in my world and I don't die in yours. It's all very confusing for everyone to understand, but I feel a little better for Alt Marta than I did for Jonas. At least here they know who she is. In World 2, Jonas doesn't exist, so everyone treated him like a pariah, and Jonas didn't receive the same welcome that Marta does here.
Right. Everybody's like, woohoo, hey, remember me? She has to be like, no, I'm not the same person you think I am, which, sure, it is really confusing for them because at this point, they haven't experienced it like we have. They haven't seen her yet. So they just assume it's her time traveling just like them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it has to be about 3 or 4 months because um they're fitting into the era that they're in at this point. Like they all have like era appropriate like haircuts and clothes and stuff. They've been working for this guy apparently. But I'm excited that we went back to 1888. It reminds me of 1899 and it made me wonder if maybe like at the same time they were filming this cuz this is like season 3, so they were like ramping down dark and they were getting ready to ramp up 1899. So I wonder if they did,
Mm-hmm.
their research like a 2-for-1 special. Like while they're researching that era kind of stuff and getting costumes ready, they can do the same thing. I mean, they got Stranger Jonas right there. They can just measure him and get his clothes ready for the for the next show, 1899. I just think it's really neat that that's the year that it is. And for numerologists out there, 1888, if you spell it out like in Roman numerals, it's like the most amount of Roman numerals that any year can possibly be that we've lived in so far. Because it's like it's 13 Roman numerals is in the year 1888. So I thought the 13 was very significant.
Okay, cool. And I'm glad you changed that word to Roman because I was going to ask if Roman numerals was different than Roman numerals.
Ramen noodles.
What I just said. Um, I wonder actually if it is better for. I was thinking, okay, now on the one hand, Jonas, when he went to World 2, I'm still thinking about this. When Jonas went to
Hmm.
World 2, nobody knew who he was, and that's really sad.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, he was able to walk around and sort of be invisible.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas then Marta has to deal with this person that looks like her brother that's all happy to see her and hugging her. And she's kind of like, what's this? I'm not who you think I am. So wonder which one, if it really is better to be one than the other.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on the situation. Both of them are apparently startling and and
Hmm.
bad. It seems. Hey, Bartosh's hair doesn't look so bad here in 1888.
I was actually thinking Bartosz looks pretty good here.
Yeah, this is his era. I think this is no. I take that back. 2019 is definitely his era because he's got that like I mean like in the World One where he's wearing like the leather jacket, had the slick hair, always wearing the tight pants and the really nice shoes. I mean that was like peak Bartosh, but this is second best. is like 1888
Pete
Bartosh because he's
Bartosh.
kind of like a hipster looking dude.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like when we first met Bartosh, he did have a little more of a sense of humor and
Hmm.
life, and then he
Yeah.
became just like, Marta, you don't seem to like me very much. So that's when he went downhill. But yeah, when at the beginning he seemed, he was a jokester. Now he did push Francisca around. We didn't like that,
Yeah.
but
Didn't like
yeah.
that.
But yeah, Bartosh is looking okay here. Magnus, of course, looks great.
Always.
Francisca looks nice in her dress and her updo as well. So I think they all did have soot on their faces again. We're dealing with the unwashed look from everybody, but they probably didn't have running water back then. So
Is this the part where they're talking and they're verbally comparing themselves to the other alt world, or is that later on?
next scene, next
Okay,
time we see them.
I'll hush up then.
Okay. All right, so then in World 1, September 22nd, 1987, Katerina wakes up at the Conwald house. She's in Mikkel's bed, or we could say Jonas's bed, because he
Yeah.
sleeps in this room in 2019, 2020. Yeah. We see
Hmm.
the Goonies poster and the tennis player Boris Becker on the wall, and the little robot that Inez
Yeah.
bought. Mikkel, yeah. The alarm goes off and plays You Spin Me Round. We see a
Familiar.
photo of Inez and Mikkel together. It's reassuring to know that Katerina made it through
Hmm.
the tunnel and is in the 1980s. She walks downstairs and an answering machine goes off. The postmaster leaves a message that he's been trying to reach them for 3 months. The phone will be cut off if they don't pay the bill next month. Is that what begins Inez's slippery slope of not paying the bills on time?
It seems it. See, I thought it was because she hated Hannah why she didn't pay the bills, but I think she's just a space cadet.
I'm joking, of course, but it was kind of
It's
funny that they
true.
were like, "We'll just cut you off if you don't pay the bills," and got in the habit once, and just for all time, you're just gonna keep that up. Katerina has made missing child posters with a picture of Mikkel's face. She exits the house, and we can see broken glass in the window, and this must be how Katerina entered the house.
The same way she did um in season 2, right? She
Yep,
loves
she'll just
breaking that
break in.
glass. Now this super confused me when I first watched it. This is the bad thing about like watching the whole show and then going back and like detail watching it
Hmm.
because I was like, where is Mikkel and Inez? Why are they not there? And like I was I paused the show at this point, ran and got my pile of notes over there because I keep every note. And I was looking through all the season 2 notes, like where did we leave off with these guys? And like
Hmm.
the last we left off with them was, of course, when Ulrich like tried to kidnap Mikkel away, and
Hmm.
Mikkel didn't say anything, and that happened. So they explain later on what happens to them, but at this point in the show, I was deeply confused as to why Katerina was there, but Mikkel and Inez were not. But all of Mikkel's stuff was there. I think it's really neat the way they threw it together because it's meant to be confusing, and um, I mean maybe it's not meant to be confusing, but it's meant to be like a storytelling device that rewards rewatches, I suppose.
Hmm. Yeah, and later we see, um, or earlier we saw Jonas doing this exact same thing in the apocalypse. So there's this
Right.
recurring theme of people seeking haven in this house.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it was visually unsettling. I totally agree. And I think he's there again. Um, but it is a little disconcerting at first because we're trying to remember, where is Mikkel and
Hmm.
Inez, and why is Katerina here? What time is she on? Time is she in? So But like you said, rewatches reward you in doing this. But when you're just watching it for the first time, yeah.
No wonder me and Heather and Tash and everybody got confused when we watched this the first time through.
hmm And the other thing is, I was looking at her shirt, this jacket she had on, and I think she wears it for most of the rest of the episode. And I was
Hmm.
like, where did she get this weird jacket? Because it's very neon and bright. And I was wondering if it was actually an outfit of Mickle's that she has on. I don't know, but because I do not think she was wearing this jacket when she came to the past. But yeah.
I mean, I have an idea for Bo and Jonte. If they want to get out of the television business and get into the jacket business and open up like a jacket store in every mall, I mean, they would do gangbusters because they got good style.
Yeah, there's some really cool clothes in this episode. So nearby at the church, we see the grave of Mads Nielsen. Some Now this isn't the same grave, of course, that we saw in 2020 that had the that
Mm-hmm. It wasn't a
Yanti.
tombstone, right?
Well, I'm saying Yantia. That's not correct. Yana. She had she she tells us later in the future we find out that they had this burial, but she didn't want it at the time. But Trant thought it would be a good idea for her.
Right.
So flowers and toys are laid out as markers. Someone at a funeral at the house remarks they made the right decision to make a grave, even if the coffin is empty. So this is before the tomb we eventually see in 2020. We see Yana at the Nielsen house. She's looking quite numb. The person talking is Herman Albers, Katarina's dad, and he
Oh,
says, "At
okay.
least they have each other," referring to Trant.
Mm,
Yana
mm-mm.
finds this amusing. She looks over to see Trant talking to a few friends. She raises a glass to Trant, mocking him and herself. Now we can stand hand in hand by an empty coffin and finally get closure. Trant comes over to keep Yana from making a further scene. She's drunk, demanding he admit where he was the night that Mads disappeared. She reveals he was with Claudia Tiedemann that night. She then accuses him of spending more energy looking for his mistress than his son.
Wow.
Trant tries to play dumb, but Yana dumps his bag onto the floor, his messenger bag, which is stuffed full of clues about Claudia's disappearance. The
Hmm.
news headlines read, "She's been missing since June 26th, the day her father was found dead."
I mean, Jana is absolutely correct to be like beside herself about this because he's holding out this hope that Claudia's still alive and still searching for her, but he has an empty grave for his son, signifying that he's given up looking for him.
Hmm.
And uh, I don't know, I can't blame Yana for that because if you compare the two things together, it just looks terrible for him.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I didn't think about it that way. That by I knew he was seemed to be spending more energy looking for Claudia based on what Yana says, but I didn't think about the fact that that means he's given up on his son.
Yeah, there's no empty grave for Claudia. He's still holding out hope.
Hmm. I did find
And
it
yeah,
interesting that
mhm.
we don't recognize anybody besides Herman Albers. There is nobody at this party that I recognize.
Yeah,
From
who could be here that we would recognize? Egon could be here, perhaps, but I don't know. I guess he doesn't hang out with them, that crowd. No, maybe Egon
Egon.
should be there
Well,
because he's the cop
no,
and like
he is the cop, but remember they all hated him because he arrested Ulrich
right.
for that false charge.
That's
Um
true. That's
about the
true.
rape, and
Okay.
Yana came and spit on him or something at the police station.
That's right. Okay, yeah, good call for not showing up,
Yeah,
Egon.
the
Okay.
Nielsen's and the Tiedemans hate each other in every generation.
Right. Well, let's except their kids hang out though. That's interesting how that happens, but Well, even then, like there's a lot of tension between Bartosh and the and the
Yes.
Nielsen kids. Absolutely.
Yes. Um, yeah, I don't know. Did you have any thoughts about this being Katarina's dad? I don't know. I thought that was interesting that they brought
I
him
didn't even
back.
realize that it was him. Even like when I read your recap and and you wrote in that it was etc. What's his name again? Albers.
Herman
I did.
Albers.
Nope, I didn't recognize him. So I'm glad you pointed it out.
Yeah, the only thing
Because
we saw him before was, he's trying to figure out why his sheep are all dying.
yeah, and that's like nearby around town. So
Mhm.
yeah, she could pop in and say hey if she wanted to.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, what's up? Uh, oh yeah, okay. I'll put a pin in that, and we'll bring up Herman Albers much later because we revisit them later on in the scene in the show. I mean,
Mhm. Okay, moving forward, a figure with rain gear, a backpack, and boots walks towards a building. The entrance has been boarded up. It's September 22nd, 2020, and the building turns out to be the police station. A voice narrates, "The world's scientists are still seeking an explanation for the events of June 27th, 2020. The epicenter of the global catastrophe is still thought to be the small town of Winden. A French research team believes it is possible that our world stood still for a fraction of a nanosecond on June 27th. Tidal forces may have diverged as a result. This would explain the global spring tides, weather phenomena, and disturbances of electrical systems, which in turn could explain the great number of airplane crashes and the simultaneous loss of power supply to nuclear power plants worldwide. There is no sign of the situation stabilizing. Wah, 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 wah. It turns Charlie Brown adult
it
voice,
does.
and the figure ends up being middle-aged Claudia, who survived in the bunker. So, a few things here. This random bit of narration offers insight that the apocalypse sparked a global catastrophe, and scientists all over the world are studying this event. It's fun to think that the little town of Winden has shaken up the world. Also, the voice specifically mentions the French scientists. And considering back in 1987, French delegates kept trying to make an appointment with Claudia. She canceled on them twice. Is it possible the French have been studying Winden all along?
Yes. That's why I wanted you to read that paragraph because I loved it. It's I love that realization, and you're right. She kept blowing off the French, and her secretary was pissed about that all the time. And even in the future, in Elizabeth's world, there's like weird scientists like going around the power plant like trying to like figure out what's up, and she hangs them in front of everybody and she like says that they're scientists there trying to like discover stuff, but this is god. That you remember this scene where she hung those scientists,
But how
Elizabeth
do you
in
know
the
they were
apocalypse?
French?
I'm taking a wild guess. I'm guessing that they've pinpointed this to Wyndon and they're still trying to figure it out,
You
you
should
know?
not be hiding this.
I just think it's a wonderful tie-in to everything, and I'm just really hoping that those are French scientists that Elizabeth hung. I really hope so.
Those
I
poor
mean, not that I
people.
want French people to die; they're already dead. I'm just wishing that it ties in with the narrative. That's all.
We've just lost our huge population of French viewers just now, Steve. Good job.
Dang it! Dang it! I know most of our listeners are overseas too, so I can't afford to lose any French listeners. Viva la France is all I got to say.
But yeah, this is a fun, I guess, a fun look at like the Chernobyl incident. It's kind of similar that everybody
Yeah.
is seems to have their eyes on Winden and they're trying to figure out what happened. So
Hmm.
this event that we've all been watching has made the world stand still and scratch their heads. So that's just interesting.
And it's cool that Claudia kind of looks like Stranger Jonas here. That's who we think it is when we see that that
Hmm.
hooded figure.
Yeah. It could be Stranger Jonas. It could be Helge. It's not.
Helge.
But we just see a it's raining and they're walking forward with this drab rain gear on. So we're wondering, who is it? And it turns
Yep.
out that it's Claudia. And I actually thought she almost looked Charlotte-ish here because
Hmm.
she's not wearing any makeup. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
later we see Charlotte later, but yeah, the French did keep trying to make an appointment. Were they on to what
Mm-hmm.
was going on?
Yeah, maybe. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody's being regulated by somebody.
Okay. So Claudia pulls a box of tamoxifen 40 mg out of her backpack. A quick check reveals that tamoxi tamox I probably said that tamoxifen is probably what it is.
Yeah,
Tamoxifen.
there you go.
It's a hormone therapy drug to treat breast cancer. Because when she first pulled out this medication, I was like, "What is this? Is this assisted
Mm-hmm.
suicide? What is she doing?"
Good call.
So Claudia is trying to help Regina with this medication because we know she has breast cancer. Regina is lying on a cot nearby. Claudia holds her hand for a minute and puts the box of medication nearby so she can reach it. She tells Regina she will return shortly. Regina is upset that she's leaving already because she just arrived. And Claudia promises to be back before the sun sets.
Yeah, 15 seconds. Hi, bye. That's in this world, the apocalyptical world. I think she can hang out for 5 at least.
Mm-hmm. Why did she
But
even come back? Just to drop off this small
yeah,
box of medication?
exactly. I mean, she was on like all kinds of machines and like before the apocalypse hit. Like she was, a sick patient. Now she's got nothing. So yeah, she needs those
Mm,
meds. It's pretty important. So
yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, you could stick around a little bit, Claudia. But
yeah,
she's got stuff to do, I guess. She's a busy woman.
yeah. I thought this was sad because I was remembering
Yeah.
when we last saw Regina, she had that episode where her mom appears out of nowhere and
Oh, that's
after
right.
33 years and says, "Please come with me to this bunker." And then Regina is in tears crying like, "Why did you leave me, mama?" And Claudia's just like, "Oh, Regina, sorry," and she hugs her and all that, but then so even though Regina technically has her mother back again, she's being left by herself in this place, in this police station.
Yeah.
And
In the apocalypse.
yeah, and Bartosz, left her. Alexander, of
Mm-hmm.
course, it wasn't his fault, and then he got killed in the apocalypse. But Regina's been left a bunch of times. It kind of reminds me how, Stranger Jonas, Hannah abandoned him. So there's a lot of abandonment happening here.
I
Yeah.
especially feel it for Regina knowing that like Alexander's not around because like
Mhm.
they're like the number one like great couple that doesn't have any issues between themselves in this show. Like, it seems like they have a real wholesome love for each other. So,
Mhm.
just knowing that he's not around anymore for her, probably, and yeah, I didn't even think about the fact that like it's this younger version of Claudia that's like taking care of her. And a double time traveled version. So yeah, everything's got to be really disconcerting to Regina right now while she's laying there on her cancer bed with this
Mhm.
woman who traveled through time and then the apocalypse happened and
Mhm.
mostly being left alone. Yeah,
Yeah. It
that's
kind of
lame.
makes you wonder why Regina and Claudia and Peter and Elizabeth and maybe even Noah, who knows? Like, why didn't they form a found family? Because they all survived in the bunker together, and they
Yeah.
could have. I mean, Peter and Elizabeth are dealing with similar dynamics where they're all each other has. You know, they only have each other. And Regina and Claudia have that, but at least Peter's around. And Claudia's not even that. So, yeah, I just
Yeah,
think
Noah could be really helpful in this situation. If they formed like a union, like you said,
yeah.
ideally, and like we forget about all the other like animosity and stuff going on surrounding them, just five
Mhm.
people that survived, absolutely they should be like if not in the same area, like, at least nearby where they're checking in on each other. Especially
Yeah.
one of them being with okay, you got a small child and then you got someone with cancer that needs help and then you
Mhm.
got three able-bodied people. So it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It seems like a no-brainer. You're right, but they all went their own ways. I guess Peter's always off by himself, so I guess he's just like an isolationist. I'm kind of an isolationist myself, so I may go that route. Me and Charlotte just
Mhm.
hanging out over here, y'all, and
Yeah.
maybe they don't trust Noah. I don't know.
Yeah, later we see Noah and Peter and Elizabeth, and this is again a case where I completely forgot when I first saw this. I was like, well, of course Peter's going to be skeptical of him because he's a total stranger. But I was like, no, they all were in a bunker together. They had plenty of time to talk and get to
Mm-hmm.
know each other. But
Yeah.
I guess that didn't happen.
I guess as soon as like the thing happened, they're like, okay, let's split up. Bye.
Yeah.
Oh, they did the Scooby Doo. Let's split up, gang.
Yeah. Okay, moving forward, across town, Peter and Elizabeth have been staying in Bernadette's trailer. Both of them come outside in the pouring rain. Peter has a Geiger counter. I wonder where he got that. And this shadowy figure is watching them.
Claudia. That's who I thought it was at first because we found out the other person was Claudia. So I'm like, oh, it's
Yeah.
Claudia's checking in on them. That's was
She's
actually
just
my initial thought.
she's everywhere at once. So Peter and Elizabeth arrive at a barricade that's been erected in front of the wind and power plant. The sound design is really cool here. There's like this. I was like, are those sirens or weird birds? It was hard to understand what that was, but
I think it was sirens, but yeah, I heard it too.
yeah, very mournful sound. You can see the smokestacks or whatever you call those things that are on top of the nuclear power plant have been completely blown off. The top of the plant is gone. Armed guards stand nearby, making sure no one passes the barricade. Peter shows one of the guards his identification. The guard tells him that in 5 days, all of this will be closed off. The area will be sealed. He chides Peter for putting his daughter through this. Peter just grabs Elizabeth's hand, and the man lets them through. He will not be kept from his task. Nearby, the shadowy figure steps out from behind a truck where he's still watching them.
Yeah, we find out later who it is. So no mystery there. I'm going to back up a little bit. Why are they
Mm-hmm.
staying at Bernadette's trailer instead of like their house? I guess their house got destroyed, so maybe the trailer's like
Yeah.
a convenient location nearby the power plant or something.
Well, maybe it's not nearby. It's far enough away that it didn't get destroyed.
Oh, yeah, maybe so. It is on the outskirts of town. It's like by a
Yeah.
truck stop because they always show like trucks going by there. So
Hmm.
I
I
just
don't know.
I
I
thought
thought
that
it was
was
kind of sweet that we know that Peter and Benny were lovers, and
hmm
that's the last place they were together. So
yeah.
he's looking for a place that's comfortable. Now, maybe that wasn't the best place to take your daughter, but
No,
they
but I
may
mean,
not have had another option.
if there was no other alternative, yeah, sure. And
Mm,
sometimes if you're comfortable, that's helpful because you can help other people be comfortable. Because if you're not comfortable, then you can't help in that regard. So yeah, maybe that's not such a
mm-hmm.
bad thing. I don't blame the guard for like chastising him about bringing his daughter, but I would like to tell the guard right now if he's listening, Peter can't leave his daughter alone. Um, so he has to take her with him wherever he goes. It's not
Hmm.
smart to leave her alone. So of course, if Peter's coming, he's going to bring his daughter, dude. So ease up on the guy. That's what I wanted to say to the guard.
Yeah. Plus, this is Elizabeth, future warlord, we're talking about here.
Ah, that's
She's not. She's very precocious. She's not a wilting violet. We, I mean,
yeah. We
she's not
see
a
in season
warlord
two,
yet.
not yet, but I mean, this is the beginnings of it. Like we see in season two, what becomes of it, and they eventually do wall off that plant, but it's obvious why she became like the leader she did. If
Hmm.
this was her beginning, because everybody seems like they're her age or younger when we see them later on in season two. That is, but
Hmm.
we're here in season three now.
Yeah.
We can move on.
But also, Steve, you made the point before
Hmm.
that Yana is upset with Trant because he's given up on finding their son.
Hmm.
Peter so far hasn't given up on finding
Hmm.
Charlotte and Francisca, and
Hmm.
until he sees the corpses, he's not ready to accept they're dead. So that's, I admire that, and I agree that this guard shouldn't have gotten so involved. Maybe if he, I mean, he doesn't know this, but he didn't know Elizabeth was deaf. But still, you shouldn't really say. Um, I don't think you should talk to people about their parenting in front of the kid.
Yeah, that's right.
But
I
yeah.
just saw a bad example of that when I was watching Secession earlier tonight. The exact same thing happened. The person was a real bastard and like chastised them for their child raising right in front of the child. Not good.
Yeah. All right. In 1888, Alt Marta has been trying to explain her appearance and identity to the teen team. That she's from a parallel world where Mikkel still exists and Francisca is mute.
I'm
Jonas.
mute.
It was kind of funny because it's pretty much the only line I think she gets to say the whole
I
rest
know.
of the season. I think she does speak at least once more, but still, it was like, Jonas doesn't exist and they are all dead because her world ends just like theirs. This one point we can't fact check yet. We have seen that
Right.
these first three items are true, but we haven't yet seen evidence of an apocalypse on World 2 yet.
Right. And yeah, I like all this back and forth here. I mean, great stuff. And I don't have any other notes other than that I loved it. If you want to move on.
Hmm. Yeah, I liked it too, but it was kind of dumb that Magnus is like, I'm not dead, I'm here. It's like, that's not how
Right.
science, that's not how time travel works, buddy. Like if you're in a parallel world, okay, you
And
understand that Magnus in that world can be dead when you're still alive, right?
I mean, we can blame it on the fact that they're in 1888, but I mean, I do know he has like a 21st century education, so he
Yeah.
should know.
Stranger Jonas has been listening to all of this silently. He wants to know how she found them. She claims that Jonas told her. Again, not something we saw him do.
Hmm.
Francisca fact checks her that she said Jonas didn't exist in World 2. Marta then claims that Jonas traveled to her world. We did see that. However, we know that Alt Marta was the one that brought Jonas there, and she doesn't share that. Stranger Jonas calls bullshit because he's never been to Marta's world. He asks if
Mm.
she wrote the letter. Alt Marta says nothing, and Jonas grabs her roughly. Both Magnus and Bartosz instinctively rise to defend her. Jonas demands to know if Adam sent her and what did she use to travel.
Good boy. I'm glad these boys got up and held our boy Jonas back. He's acting a little out of pocket.
Mhm.
What a concept though, that he doesn't remember going to her world, yet we clearly saw it last episode. Where were you last
Mhm.
episode, Stranger Jonas? We all saw it. So that's a really interesting concept. So I'm interested to see how I mean, we have seen it, but I'm interested to see again how that presents itself and how that explains itself because it makes zero sense
Yeah.
that your younger self experienced something that your older self has zero memory of, unless it's like some sort of like implanted like other type of science fiction, um, you
Mm-hmm.
know, brain removal, removal of memories, things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Memories have been wiped or something like that.
yeah, yeah, maybe Tom Cruise came by and did like one of his things. But yeah, that's such a cool concept that the older guy doesn't remember what the younger guy did. So yeah,
Yeah,
I had
we're
had a
all
lot of
trying
big
to
notes and exclamation points around that.
yeah, we're all trying to figure out the clues and say like, okay, who's lying here? Or did
Right.
somebody's memories get wiped? Or how does it make sense that Jonas never went to that world? We're all trying to figure that out. And I think it's yeah, yeah, I think it's cool. Okay. So just then another figure enters the hall. He accuses them of being late today. This must be their employer. They all seem to know who he is except for Alt Marta. He steps forward to meet her, and we see that he's blind. Stranger Jonas walks out without saying a word. The man touches Marta so he can see her. I feel like he should have asked permission before he just started groping her, but okay.
Yeah, yeah.
He senses that she is the reason that the stranger's mood is foul, or at least more foul than normal, which I thought was funny. And he tells her not to be scared and claims he can see things that the sighted cannot.
Yeah, nice little parallel there for our guy. Yeah, I don't like this guy off the bat. How he grabbed
What?
Martha and feeling her face like you're saying, and he's not even doing a good job of that. Have you ever seen a blind person feel someone's face to get a feel for how they look? They don't
Mm.
do it the way he did it. He just like kind of stroked her cheek a little bit, and and yeah, Francisca and Jonas both kind of bow to the man when he comes in the room. Like I watched it twice and they both kind of like demur to this guy. So he's important. Is he wearing his top hat in this scene? Does he come
I
in with
don't
his
think
top hat
so.
on?
I don't think so.
At some point we see him with the top hat on. He looks really important. And you're scared of the guy because he looks rich and old and blind. So
Mhm.
I mean, not that he doesn't seem bad, but he just seems off-putting, is what I got to say.
Yeah. But I don't know. I thought he seemed kindly enough. I mean, he says you're all late today, but he's not being a bully about it.
Oh, that's true, I guess.
He's just more stating as a fact. I did think it was funny that he kind of calls out Stranger Jonas for generally being a grump.
Yeah, I imagine he is. He's probably not fun to work with.
No, he probably gets his work done, but
Hmm.
he's just not content with his life. Poor guy. We can't blame
Yeah.
him. Okay, we cut to 1987. Katerina passes out flyers in the school hallway. Again, a random adult just showing up at the school, no security whatsoever. It was the 80s. There
Yeah.
wasn't any security back then.
They were drinking out of fire. They were drinking out of garden hoses. Whatever.
This is a terrific scene. So up walks teen Ulrich, and Katerina is momentarily shook by his appearance. His nose is broken. Do we know why? No, we don't. Although we
Nope.
spent an awful lot of time talking about it. Why Ulrich had this broken nose all bandaged up. He looks at her curiously and wonders if he knows her. Katerina's appearance is just a little scary here. Sort
Hmm.
of Claudia like, the old
Hmm.
Claudia. Her hair's
Agreed.
all ratty. Yeah. She tries to hand him a flyer. He's wearing the No Future jacket.
Hmm.
He says that maybe the madman got the little tyke after all. Katerina grabs him to ask what he means, but he shakes her off and calls her Typhoid Mary, which is pretty funny of an
Yeah.
insult for that time period. Ulrich's no dummy. He's throwing out these cultural references right and left.
Right. Most punk rockers are pretty well informed of yeah,
That's awesome.
worldly events. Yeah.
All right, so then teen Hannah and Katerina both walk up. The plot thickens. Teen Katerina gives him a big smooch. Let's clarify
Right,
which
right.
Katerina we mean. Hannah tries to interrupt the moment. Older Katerina says she remembers this moment as young Katerina. Young Katerina tries not to let this shake her, but it does. Then Hannah tries to be helpful and shares that the madman tried to kidnap Mikkel, but he's now at the psychiatric hospital. Again, Hannah's being helpful to a complete stranger, young Hannah. Katerina takes the opportunity to tell Hannah to keep her mitts off both Ulrich and Mikkel, and we know she won't.
Like this is like 3 months after the events of June '87. Now it's September '87. I guess they've been hanging out a bunch at this point. The teen Katerina and teen Hannah, and she
Mm-hmm.
has to watch Ulrich kiss her a whole lot and get jealous a lot, I suppose. But yeah, it's you're gonna go on to I think some more heartbreaking stuff in just a moment. Because Katerina's not done running into people at this point. When she comes to school today, like she gets a real eyeful of everybody. It's really neat.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Oh
so
no,
you're saying you.
I'm mistaken. I'm mistaken. I'm misremembering. I'm remembering when Jonas came and ran into Hannah, and that's wrong episode and wrong people.
I'm thinking you're going to come back. Your future self is going to come back to this moment and say, I remember now that I didn't remember correctly.
Another day and Steve. Yeah.
uh, yeah. But I thought this was a great scene. I don't know. Maybe you said some stuff when we froze up that I didn't get to hear. But this is great. Katerina pushing Hannah up against the wall and basically saying, keep your mitts
Oh,
off of
that's
Ulrich
right.
and Mikkel. Yeah.
What a joy to see that. See like adult Katerina bullying the little girl who hasn't done anything yet. Actually just planting seeds in her. Like, oh, okay. All right.
hmm And Hannah was just like, "Oh yeah, well, if you want to know about the madman, here's what happened." Here she's trying to be helpful, and then he just gets the
Yeah.
old pusher-rooney. But
And
yeah,
nobody
this
likes
was
the
this is
news they
great.
get. And yeah, the madman thing, of course they're talking about Ulrich and
Mhm.
Katerina's got those bells going off in her head because she realizes this too. So
Mhm.
yeah, stuff is happening.
And yeah, the no future jacket here. It's like it's a great scene altogether. So I love it.
Same.
Um, okay, across town, Trant Nielsen waits to be seen at the wind and power plant. Claudia's secretary meets him in the foyer wearing a red dress. She tells him that she's already told the police all she knows. Trant wants to know if the secretary remembers anything strange right before she disappeared. The secretary mentions that Claudia's appearance was less put together that week. She wore an outfit twice. And that an old woman showed up about the dog, claiming it belonged to her.
She noticed the same thing you noticed, Lindsay, because you pointed that out when we were watching Claudia, and you were like, "Yeah, she's not doesn't have any makeup. She's not put together, wearing the
Mm-hmm.
same outfit." Everybody noticed Claudia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be a good secretary. I could have been Claudia's secretary here.
I don't wish that upon you, Lindsay.
I would have taken over the company while she was all gone.
I mean, keep some pepper spray at hand in case anybody sneaks into your office late at night. But her red dress, is there any significance there? It's bright red, and we've been
Mm-hmm.
talking about colors. And what does red usually signify? It's like pay attention or like something's about to happen.
Pay attention, passion, desire, somebody who will travel, maybe. A lot of the red dress people end up traveling.
Like the red shirt in Star Trek. I
Yeah,
think in this case, that's
that's
what it
true.
is.
Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of stunning to see her because I don't think she normally wears red, but
Mm-mm.
it's almost like, remember Claudia was, you called her the ultimate red woman. Like when we did the color the
Mm-hmm.
color quiz, you picked Claudia for red.
Mm-hmm.
And now that Claudia's not there, the
Oh.
secretary, who's Jasmine is her name, she's sort of had to take over that position. I also, she's pregnant here, and I did sort of wonder, I mean, it's not in the episode, but I'm like, who is the father? And she was the one that when the Claudias were meeting them each other in the office, the older Claudia's like, look out the window and see what's happening behind you. And the
Oh
man in the
yeah.
office was staring at her butt when she leaned
Uh-huh.
over and picked up her papers. And I'm like, is there a sexual harassment lawsuit coming? I don't know.
Yikes. I hope you didn't take it that far, buddy.
Yeah. So I don't know what the significance is other than there needs to be something red in this scene because Trant is looking for Claudia. So, the closest thing he has is this secretary.
Gotcha. Well, I'm sticking with the red shirt Star Trek thing because it fits in perfectly.
Hmm. Okay, so then in 2020, Claudia begins to create the eventual string board. She has
Mm-hmm.
pictures of Trant, herself, and other players on the board. Oh, she has a picture of Regina too.
Okay, good.
So she's creating this what will become the big string board. Then there's an awkward jump. Well, it's a cool jump actually, where we cut to Peter who's looking at a photo board of the deceased.
Right.
All the people whose corpses have been identified after the apocalypse. He wants to know if the people he loved are dead. Yes, that includes Charlotte and Francisca, but perhaps also Bernadette. We see 3
Mm-hmm.
photos: an unidentified woman, Benjamin Waller, and Jurgen Obendorf. And we do see Bernadette. And I felt sad that Benny gets called her dead name on this string board.
Right. Yeah, I guess these soldiers would have no way of knowing though. They can only
Mhm.
go by like the ID that they found with the body, I assume.
Yeah.
And if Brandy hadn't gotten to the point, Bernadette hadn't gotten to the point of like, legally changing their name. So, but yeah, you're right. It is not a good thing. And I mean, nothing against Bernadette, but I was really sad seeing Waller, seeing like a death picture of Waller because he's always been
Mhm.
my guy.
Yeah. And the reason I'm able to say with clarity whose people are is because their names are actually written underneath. So if you're not completely
Right.
sure, you can be
Yeah,
like, okay, yeah, that's who it is.
if you don't believe us, go look for yourself.
Okay, we also see in another photo we see Alexander Tiedemann who died alone in a cell. It doesn't say that, but I'm remembering. We remember you, Alexander. He died alone in that
Yes.
cell. And then a man that might be Clausen.
I
Lastly,
didn't catch that.
Wooler. Yeah, I could tell it was supposed to be Clausen.
Okay.
And if he feels grief about Bernadette, Peter does a good job keeping this hidden from Elizabeth. He doesn't really show visibly that any of this shakes him emotionally at all.
Right.
Instead, he steps forward to ask some employees if they've seen Charlotte or Francisca. He describes what they look like, which I thought was interesting because the photos are in black and white. So how could they tell she had blonde hair or red hair? Yeah.
Well, I guess they're looking at the corpses. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. And they do the old what's in the stock room response. If it's not on the board, they're not here.
That's right. There's no cereal in the back. I'm sorry.
My gosh. Okay, so Elizabeth seems a little shaken, but Peter tries to comfort her. It's good they haven't been found because that means there's a chance they are alive.
Right.
Maybe they traveled. He allows her to come to that conclusion on her own, but I wondered if Elizabeth believes that or if she's just saying it to make her father feel better so he can believe he's doing his job.
Interesting. Yeah. Hidden motives. I guess that could be the case. That she could just be going along with it. Um, I mean, I'm just reading about like decoy letters that they would send, like in wars back in like medieval wars. They would send decoy letters, but the person who would deliver the letter would have like a different set of news for the person that they were handing the letter to that said something completely opposite, just in case the letter was found.
Mm,
Um, so maybe Elizabeth's doing one of those deals. She's like, she doesn't feel better, but she knows that if she says she feels better, that her dad will feel better. So
yeah.
she's trying to perpetuate the grief or the hope. That's it. Perpetuate the hope.
Well, we know that sometimes families are complicated and often, all too often, kids end up in a caretaking role for their parents.
Oh
And even though
yeah,
it might seem that Peter is being the parent here, in some ways, Elizabeth is showing, we see later in the episode, it feels like she's almost showing a greater level of the maturity of him. And she ends up rebelling. But up until that point, she's kind of been going along, following his lead and doing what he thought. So I just thought that was
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're back to the police station in 1987. There's a poster asking if anyone has information about the death of Egon Tiedemann, another poster about the missing Claudia Tiedemann. Katerina storms in, ready to take names.
I love
she's
that.
upset. She's upset that the policeman named Martin Doring dismisses her concerns at once. She has no evidence that she's Michael Conwald's mother. Apparently, Katerina keeps going to the police station trying to get information, but is keeping her identity secret.
Right.
Just like Ulrich, she's not being smart about how to go about accomplishing her goals. Katerina is worried about the man from the psychiatric ward. Martin tells her that they sent Inez and Michael away on purpose to keep him safe. Now, this was not a good job. You don't tell somebody that you
hmm
don't believe that the person they're looking for is actually in witness protection and you know where they are. Uh,
The only thing I'm thinking is maybe he was just trying to get her off his back. And
yeah.
that would like maybe he was thinking that and he's just like desperate to like get her off his back.
hmm They have different protocols in Germany about witness protection, obviously.
And it's the 80s.
Yeah. He drops that the madman has been locked up for 34 years. This sets off alarm bells in Katerina's brain, and she realizes it might be Ulrich.
Okay, I was wrong. She didn't realize that with Hannah. She got a new piece of information with Hannah. So I was wrong when I made my point 10 minutes back. So scratch that from the edit, Steve. All right.
Your future self will tell you. Yeah. Yeah, that was a funny scene. And I feel like again they're making this they're mirroring Katerina and Ulrich.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
especially
then
their manner of going about getting information, which is just
yeah.
frantically and with no dignity or I don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah. Trant drives in his car and sees Regina waiting at the bus stop. She's holding Gretchen and looking sad. She's now lost her mother and grandfather in just a few days. He stops to offer her a ride and notices she's holding a dog that looked like Gretchen from his youth. She asks if he thinks the disappearance of Mads and her mother are connected. He's not sure. He asks her if Claudia ever mentioned anything about an old woman or about him. Regina seemed willing to talk before, but here she shuts down. She's not
Mhm.
prepared to talk about this topic with Trant. Before he drops her off, he tells her she can count on him if she ever needs help.
This is an oddball scene, right?
Yep.
Like
We go
everything
from
about it.
one awkward person to another.
Yeah, right. Like without context, it's super creepy
Mm-hmm.
that this older man is like picking up this young girl at a bus stop and offering her a ride. But then with the context of like, this is somebody who's like, I was involved with her mother. It's like there's a chance I might be her dad, maybe. So
Mm.
with that context, it's not creepy anymore, but now it's like overreaching and like awkward and weird. Like he doesn't do any he doesn't do himself any favors in like the awkwardness department here. So
Yeah.
either with or without context, it's an oddball of a scene.
I mean, she was actually talking to him a little before. She really
Right.
was, and asking him questions, and he could have just dropped her off at home, but instead he has to be
Yeah.
like, "So, did your mama ever mention anything about me to you?" And you can see on her face, she's just like, "This is too much. Please drop me off."
Yeah, Tron. She wouldn't shut up about you. She talked about you all the time. Come on, what do you want to hear? Jesus.
Mhm.
And poor Gretchen. Gretchen is not allowed to walk anymore. Like this whole episode and last episode, it's just being carried around. Like even when they get out of the car, she starts walking and like carrying Gretchen around.
Mhm. Yeah. This wasn't the life that you Gretchen's wishing she was back in the cave, probably. Somebody put me
Oh
back
yeah.
there. Okay, back in 2020, we see Claudia in Helge's bunker. We see the gas cans, a gas mask, and a few dead rabbits. This is the place that Jonas eventually visits in 2053.
Hmm.
She holds the vial of cesium and begins to talk into a tape recorder. My name is Claudia Tiedemann. I am one of the few survivors of the apocalypse of June 27th, 2020. Almost 3 months have passed since the catastrophe. It's still unclear what led to the events in Winden, but the God particle, if we can stabilize it, maybe is a way back to the past. Maybe we can save them, all of them. And this is actually the recording that Jonas played at the beginning of season 2 as well. So it's another instance where we're getting in the future, we're getting something from the past.
They need to do another show like this. Just do this again. Just refilm it
Mhm.
all.
Yeah.
Because I love this. Where we know that this is the tape that Jonas is listening to later. It's great. She's
Mhm.
holding the sesame in his hand, and I like when she says like we're the survivor of what happened. Freaking Clausen. That's what I wrote down here. Clausen happened. It was all Clausen's fault. So I'm going to put the blame squarely on his shoulders, if I may.
Mhm. So then Peter and Elizabeth walk in the rain towards the Conwald house. The Geiger counter begins to go off. This is where Jonas stayed before the
Hmm.
apocalypse. It's now dark and empty, and March's body has been removed. Peter goes to search upstairs. Elizabeth finds all the pictures on the table. In walks teen Noah. She must recognize him from the bunker. This is where I realize, oh yeah, they already know each other. He's not exactly a stranger. So
Right,
she
right.
sees.
Yeah.
Claudia, Regina, Noah, Peter, and Elizabeth all survived in the bunker, but they haven't stuck together. Claudia and Regina went to the police station, Peter and Elizabeth in the trailer. Noah has been on his own. He tells her he's looking for food. She mentions they are looking for their family members. He's very patient with her and allows her to write things on a notepad. She wants to know where he sleeps. He tells her he sleeps in a cave. This makes her smile, and they share a
Hmm.
little moment. Peter comes downstairs freaking out. He reminds Noah that they want nothing to do with him, and it's not clear why Peter is so untrusting of Noah. Is he going by the name alone? He tells
Hmm.
Peter that they both want to protect her and that he will when Peter is dead. Noah's calm assurance must be very unnerving here. He then nods goodbye to Elizabeth and leaves.
Yeah, he reads like a psychopath. That's right. And that sounds like a threat. It really sounds like a threat to me that I'll be taking care of her when you're dead. Like again, just like Trump before, like really weird vibes here, Noah. I can
Yeah.
see why Peter says stay away
Hmm.
from us just from his mannerisms. He's a weird dude.
It kind of makes you wonder how he became Noah as we know him, who's
Right.
very charming and able to talk to people and make them trust him.
Hmm.
This is, yeah, where did he learn to do that?
I think I know the answer, but I'm not going to say it yet. We'll save that for like episode 5 or 6.
Oh, okay.
Because yeah, we don't leave these guys off. We keep going with them all season. The Geiger counter. I wanted to bring that. You mentioned that twice now. I
Yeah.
wonder if this is like one of the same Geiger counters that Stranger Jonas brought back that Jonas was using, and Peter has like found them at some point. That's kind of what I was wondering. I don't know why else Peter would have Geiger
Hmm.
counters handy.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that it was in the bunker. Like maybe there were
Right.
some Geiger counters in the bunker and he took one. Um, I'm not sure how he's using it here because he seems to be carrying it around.
Hmm.
Um, we know that Charlotte had some notes. So, yeah, I'm not
Yeah, I
sure
guess
what he's using the is he why would he be looking for radiation? Is it like,
to make
"Oh,
sure it's safe.
um okay, yeah."
That's my. I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, I think that's
Mhm.
exactly what it is. Is just wants to make sure every area he goes in is safe before he goes into it.
Mhm. Well, it was I don't know, it's kind of cute that he makes her smile somehow. I don't know why it makes her smile that he sleeps in the cave, but she
I
seems to
think she just
find
thinks
that
it's
funny.
it's weird. I mean, it's actually a really smart place to stay, and that makes me want. That's what I was wondering. That's my
Mhm.
thought. It came back. Welcome back, thought. Um, well, how come Peter and Elizabeth aren't in the bunker? That'd be a good place to live, other than a trailer. I mean, it's safe. One of the safest places you can be.
Yeah, I'm guessing because they don't have, like, their stove. The
I think it's a
RV
proximity
has
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the RV also has, like I said, has a stove. They can cook that delicious canned goods that they've been
That's
eating.
that's true. You have everything you need in an RV. You're absolutely right about that. It's a really compact house. It actually is convenient for the situation, so I shouldn't
Mhm.
knock it.
Yeah, somehow they're still getting power in the RV, and I don't know, maybe.
Probably a
Who
generator with gas,
Yeah.
because I don't think gas is a commodity at this point. Um, because those soldiers are still driving around with their trucks and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of wish Noah could've yeah. Noah could've gotten to know Peter a little better. I mean,
Right.
yeah, he really does want only the best for Elizabeth. He
He,
really isn't creepy.
he's close to Elizabeth's age, closer than Peter is. So
Mhm.
yeah, maybe that's what
Yeah.
Peter's afraid of. That she'll be closer to him and leave him behind, and he won't have anybody. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah. All right, so in 1888, we cut to the tan house factory. Alt Marta sits on the bed. In walks Bartosz. He apologizes for stranger Jonas's behavior. Bartosz is still putty in Marta's hands. She asks how they got here, and Bartosz mentions that they traveled right as things blew up. Does Bartosz wonder at all why Marta is asking these questions? Because he's just answering them. The machine is now empty of the fuel it needs to power it. Marta then asks about the factory and the man who runs it. Does he know where they are from? In response, Bartosz stands up and tells Marta he wants to show her something, and she seems to hesitate before following him.
Yeah, it's always a weird way to to answer somebody's question. Here, come, I'm going to show you something. Very weird, Bartosh. Otherwise, Bartosz is I think he's doing great here. I didn't question this because he knows that she's also a time traveler from another dimension. So I think he's very interested to connect with somebody else besides the people that he's there with, because obviously,
Mhm.
you know, Francisca and Magnus are into each other, so that kind of leaves him with Stranger Jonas. So he's really happy to have somebody to talk to.
Yeah. He doesn't like, we know he and Stranger Jonas don't like each other. And then here's Marta, the woman that he loved, shows up, even though it's not supposed to be her, is someone that looks like her. So yeah.
Why not just invite Killian too? I mean, come on.
All right, so then elsewhere, Stranger Jonas holds the letter from Marta. He's sitting in the room with the old blind man named Gustav Tannhaus. Gustav asks if Alt Marta is also a traveler. He tells Stranger Jonas that when they arrived, it was a sign to him that whatever Alt Marta means to him, he should not lose sight of their mission to create Paradise, that
Ooh.
every pain and calamity can be erased. The handle of Gustav's cane says Sic mundus creatus est. It's
Mm.
interesting to see the man in philosophy who will influence Adam.
It's super interesting. This is where Sigmundus is, not where it begins, but like, this is a very early iteration of it. And
Mm-hmm.
he's even talking about paradise, and that whole theme continues on like through the 2050s. So,
Mm-hmm.
they kept that whole thing going. Um,
Yeah.
that's great. I love all this.
Yeah. I wonder what exactly he's trying to do. This tan house, this earlier tan house.
Well, he knows about traveling.
Yeah.
Um, and he is looking for like signs. So he's, that kind of person that like, will like see a sign and like take it as meaning something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's a really idealistic individual. And well, I'll let Bartosh explain it to us later, but we learned that he's part of this like group of people, and rich old weirdo with a lot of money and an
Mm-hmm.
interesting philosophy. So yeah, he's acting on it and
Yeah. We're gonna
got this
find
laboratory.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna find out later. But I just always assumed that Adam created Sic Mundus. So it's just
right.
interesting to
Yeah.
see, like, oh wait, there was this other person that started it. It might have become something else, but the idea,
Mm-hmm.
but is his version of paradise the same version that Adam
Oh,
pictures, which is annihilation? Yeah.
sure, but
So
it's almost the same thing. Like Gustav's version of
mhm.
paradise is that all pain and calamity can be erased. I
Yeah.
mean, you can look at that the same way.
Okay, in 1987, Katerina enters the psychiatric hospital. She looks flustered and has wetness in her eyes as she approaches the attendant at the front desk. We don't normally see Katerina ever looking flustered, so this is something to behold. The woman's name tag reads Helene Albers. Turns out, Katerina's mother, and she's
Mommy.
wearing the St. Christopher pendant. The woman looks impatient but comes forward. Katerina asks to see the man who has been there for 34 years. Helene knows this must be the inspector. She also wonders if she's met Katerina before. She looks familiar. They both look at each other like ghosts, and I wonder if Helene sees the ghost of her teenage daughter in this older woman.
I wondered that too at that exact moment because she looks at her like, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Helene also asks if Katerina is a relative of the man. Katerina says that he's her husband. Helene thinks Katerina is one of those women who latches on to an inmate because she can't get anyone better.
Such a shitty thing to say.
Yeah, maybe not something you should say out loud, even if you believe it. Not much of a healthcare professional, is she? She begins to walk away, telling Katerina she needs to come back tomorrow. But Katerina knows exactly what to say. That's St. Christopher, the patron saint of travelers. He renounced the devil and carried the creator of the world. My mom had one just like that. I've traveled a long way. Let me see him. You have to hand it to Katerina. She knows how to push her mother's buttons. This pendant must mean a great deal to Helene. Also, it makes sense now why Marta knew so much about the coin the day that she and Jonas found it that day on the beach. This is a powerful bit of acting by both women.
Absolutely. I don't even know what I can add because that's just this is great. The It kind of explains everything about the necklace almost. Explains a lot about it and why, the story's been handed down now, almost like reluctantly.
Mm-hmm.
Katerina doesn't like, not like she has a great relationship with her mom, but she learns what her mom is into and is able to use it to her advantage here. This is like the perfect thing to say. This is
Mm-hmm.
not Katerina Madwoman, whatever. This is really calculated and really smart. And this is actually thinking on her feet too. Like she didn't come in
Mm-hmm.
here planning to see her mom, did she? I mean, I think that must have been a surprise, or did she kind of already know her mom was going to be there? Wonder, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, she
We'll
did
never know.
say when she talked to Martin Doring, she told him, I remember the madman. My mother told me about him.
Okay. So maybe she
Now,
was expecting it.
it might be that she knew, but then, oh yeah, when she comes in the door, there's my mother. I didn't think about this even though I should have remembered. But yeah, it just this her statement about this um these were just like the magic words. As soon as she says them, the woman turns around almost
Hmm.
like it's outside of her will. She can't help
Hmm.
but comply when you bring up this St. Christopher pendant. And I did think it was interesting because in season 2, episode 6, the best episode of the show, um, Marta kind of she tells Jonas that's St. Christopher, the patron saint of travelers. And he kind of looks at her oddly and she's like, it's a long story. She kind of laughs and but yeah, this is something I bet her mom told her about. And when I was a little girl, my mother wore this pendant. It was probably yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like,
Mm. And she said your favorite word, star commissar. Is that what it is?
oh, Der Kommissar, yes.
She's like,
Do
Dark
you know that
commissar.
song by Falco?
I don't.
I'll send it to you later in the chat. I'm sure you
Hmm.
remember it when you were 9 or something. It was a very popular song when
Hmm.
we were when we were children.
Hmm. Okay, so Katerina gets to see older Ulrich. She's led into a recreation room where all the patients sit. Ulrich is by himself looking at a chessboard. Katerina sits down across from him and speaks his name. He slowly raises his eyes to her and then can't hold her gaze. Both of them seem to swell with emotions. His hands shake and she covers them with hers. He's ashamed, but she promises to get him out. While it's not exactly a reconciliation, the two of them extend grace to one another.
Yeah, it's neat. He's seen like a time traveling Hannah, way back when, and now he's seeing a time traveling Katarina coming to him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and this scene was super powerful. Like, yeah, I like the way they interacted here, and like you're right. They don't really come to like they don't make like a
Mm-hmm.
big grand gesture or anything like that. But it's just wonderful that they're together
Mm-hmm.
inconceivably.
There's time to work all that out later, but for right now, I'm gonna get you out, and I'm gonna get our son, and we're gonna go home. That's we can work the rest out later. We can work out our joint visitation um, if we don't reconcile.
Right.
I also really love Ulrich's sweater here. He's wearing this cardigan. It's interesting. I can't think of anything significant about it, but it was the blue color. It has these mixture of diamonds and squares on it. It's a very geometric pattern. And again, it's like
Mm.
you sort of, I don't know. I want to go to a thrift store. It's just like when the sweater they have in Everything Everywhere All at Once that the lead actress wears in that. I'm like, I want that cardigan so bad. And now I kind of want this blue cardigan that Ulrich is wearing.
When I saw the movie, what was it? Baby Driver, maybe?
Hmm.
And like the lead character wore that jacket with the eagle on the back of it.
Hmm.
I I really wanted that jacket just for I thought it was just the coolest jacket in the world, so I can relate.
We need to open our own jacket store. Jackets and cardigans.
Yep, we'll do recreations of, great television and movie jackets.
Okay, at the wind and power plant, Claudia's secretary is ready to sign off for the day. She notices activity in Claudia's old office. Inside, she finds the middle aged unknown rifling through papers in Claudia's
Mm.
desk. She comes forward to stop him. The other two versions surround her. She threatens to call the cops. He then says, "Hell is empty and all the devils are here." He strangles her with a wire just like he did to Burnt.
Jasmine does not deserve this. I hate this, and this is why the red shirt, because she dies.
Mm,
Boo on you, unknown. He's like, I wrote down here more power plant related mischief. He's
hmm.
like getting in all the power plant business here where he
Right.
should not be, and letting his dad and his son watch.
Yeah, with Burned, he wanted the keys to the power plant.
Hmm.
And
I
who
think
was the
here he was
first
just
person
getting.
he killed? I'm trying to remember now. I'm drawing a blank. Who was the first?
I'm drawing a blank too. It might have been he went and burnt down the Sigmundus lair, and that's it. Then he went and killed Burnt.
All right. Across town, Yana plays with the Ouroboros bracelet on her wrist. Trant comes home and sits down with her on the couch. Yana says he must choose for them or against them. He mentions that he saw Regina today. Maybe that wasn't the best thing to say in that moment, but neither of them wonder. Sorry, neither of them know who Regina's father is. He agrees that he does need to decide and holds her hand. This is the Nielsen house, formerly the Tiedemann house, a home of broken marriages.
Yes. Why did he bring up Regina there? And I know that she says that she doesn't know who Regina's father is, but he doesn't say that. He just kind of looks at her when she says that, right?
No, he says, well, Yana mentions all this time Claudia never said who the father was. And he says
Hmm.
something like, I've always wondered. So they both kind of muse about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you mentioned that. Oh, why did he break up Regina? I guess
Hmm.
on the one hand, you could say, well, that really wasn't the smartest idea to bring up Regina just then. Probably really hurt her feelings that that's what you had to say in response. However,
Yeah.
I will also say, on the other hand, part of intimacy is actually sharing feelings, even if they're not the feelings you would want to share. I don't think he was trying to hurt her, but he just wanted to say, like, hey, well, this happened to me today. So he's sharing what happened to him that day, and why it might be difficult for him
No,
to
you're right.
just
Okay.
forget about Claudia. So I don't know. It was he could be just being selfish, but on the other hand, he's sharing his feelings. They say like, okay, I'm gonna just go off for a second, but people that have affairs. Um, if you're going to get through that process together, part of it is, the spouse needs to be honest, like, okay, I am missing that person, and that's hard for me. So I'm not saying that what I did was right, but I'm also grieving the loss of this person. So I don't know. I
Hmm.
kind of felt like he was opening up to her a little bit, even though it also could have been a little insensitive. That he could have like responded to her about them first and then mentioned about Regina a little bit later. So maybe just the timing wasn't the best.
Right. And he makes it clear by his like body language that he's choosing her
Hmm.
in this moment. So I guess we can feel okay about that.
Yeah. Although he doesn't really have a choice because Claudia's gone. Let's not
You
give
could
him
say
too
that.
much of a free pass.
He could just leave town, go to
Yeah.
France.
Okay. So then, back in 2020, Regina lies on her cot at the police station. It's thunderstorming fiercely. In walks Trant. Regina thinks it's Claudia at first. She calls him by name. He covers his hand with hers and tells her he's sorry, but it has to happen. He begins to tear up. She said this was the only way to save you. He covers her face with a pillow and smothers her. And this moment powerfully juxtaposes Trant's suspicion that he's related to Regina with his choice to murder her.
Yeah, same guy from the last scene that we were just talking about.
Yeah,
I mean, you can see this as a mercy. Like there's nothing else they can do for her. At the same time, like I'm not sure this was his choice cuz you say somewhere about like how it's like his choice to murder her. But he references she said to do this or she said
right.
this was the only way to save you. So I assume that he's talking. First off, it's a surprise that he's here, right?
Mhm.
We're not expecting that. But we also know out there in this same world, in this same time period, is middle aged Claudia. So I think that's the she that he's referring to. Like she
Right.
didn't have the strength to like give her a mercy killing like this. So she asks Trant to do it.
So I think we're just
Hmm.
wondering who she is
Yeah.
because we
And like, yeah,
haven't
that's my
seen,
first
yeah.
thought is
Yeah.
that it's middle aged Claudia because who else is he talking about? Elizabeth? Did you do this, Elizabeth? You scampy little girl. Come on. Because, she's down the street too, remember?
Right, but it could have been Eva. It could have been anybody. It
Sure.
doesn't.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
forgot
so
about
I
the Eva
think,
part
yeah.
and the time traveling part too. We can't forget their time traveling.
But I guess what's chilling about this is, Yana makes this statement, you need to um you need to choose them, or for them, and part of that them, Claudia, is with Regina. And so he's deciding, I'm going to stay with my wife, and then the next thing we see is he's killing the child of the woman that he's been obsessed with. So it's not it's just kind of a powerful image that he does this as a younger self. He says, I'm going to choose my family. And then we see him strangling this woman with a pillow. And you're like, you can't help but connect those two events. Even though
Yeah.
you do see this is difficult for him. He doesn't want to do this. He's not like
Right.
coming
Right.
over. It's not a revenge killing. But yeah.
Clearly not.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's neat how it all ties in. And Dark as a show, kind of like you watch it in a much more similar way to like reading a book, I would say. Like Dark would work wonderfully like on the written page as like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a three-part novel, or I'm sorry, like a trilogy or whatever. I think it would work great because that's kind of how I feel when I'm watching Dark, is that like I'm reading
Mm-hmm.
a neat book.
Yeah. You're just kind of in awe. I feel like you're in awe of the writing when you're watching it. You're just
Yeah.
like, I can't
Yes.
believe that anybody put this together.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, we're heading towards the final quarter of this thing. All right, so elsewhere, Peter looks for some canned dinner for him and Elizabeth. She stares at the notepad with Noah's messages. She wants to
Oh,
know. Oh, he wants to know. Oh, wait, no, she. I did. That wasn't a typo. She wants to know what the two of them talked about because when they were having their conversation, Noah and Peter, when they were having that,
right.
she couldn't tell what they were saying because they were looking at each other. She wasn't able to read the lips. So you can tell she's like, "So what did you guys talk about?" he She doesn't know this part about when you're dead. Ha ha ha. She doesn't know about that part.
Right.
Elizabeth feels upset that Peter isn't telling her what's going on. He's the only person she has right now, and he's treating her like a child. Of course, to him, she is a child, but we have to remember that Elizabeth has no one else, and her status as a deaf person makes her a social outcast to most people. She shows him the sick Mundus journal. She's not stupid. Where are Mom and Francisca? She pushes him hard. She's now crying. He tries a gentler approach. So far, he's just been ignoring the questions he didn't want to answer. He tells her they will find them. One thing that's very sweet is that Elizabeth has been wearing Francisca's sweater that we saw her wear in episode 1 with the bird or the eagle on the sweater
Mhm.
at the very first episode.
Yeah, a lot of emotion here, and Elizabeth, you know, you're really feeling for her a lot. Um, I know I am.
Mhm.
And yeah, what you said about her status as a deaf person, just like with our man Gustav Tannhaus, I think that being deaf, I think makes her a little more observant than your average kid would be, and they
Mhm.
grow up with like a different just perspective of the world. So I do think that yeah, she is
Yeah.
a kid. She's feeling a lot of pain, but she's also older than her years. A few years older than her years.
Mhm. Yeah, she before she could talk to Peter, Charlotte, Francisca, and the kids and teachers at her school. So she wasn't completely isolated. And what's sweet about Noah, I feel, is that has already to prepare himself, he has already worked on communicating with a deaf person. I mean, that's why he's so patient with her. I don't think he's quite seems to have learned sign language exactly, but he does make an effort to talk to her much better than anybody we've seen, like an average person that would just come up. You
Yeah.
tend to like you tend to just talk really loud or something. So he doesn't do anything stupid. He's genuinely making an effort to talk to her. And I think that's why she ends up going to him. Like she notices that he's treating her in a deferential way and with respect.
Okay. Yeah. About that.
Yeah. Okay. So I think Noah's hot, so I have to stick up for him. Okay. Even though he's a creep. September 22nd, 2053. Inside the Winden Caves, Charlotte touches the photos of her as a baby with Elizabeth and Noah as her parents. So now we know that touching fingers with Elizabeth brought her to the future.
Yes.
Elizabeth comes into the caves too. There are other people there. She sits down next to her mother slash daughter. Charlotte gets up. Their relationship seems a little strained, but Elizabeth tells her it will be okay, and they touch foreheads.
I don't know if the relationship is strained, but I mean, they're totally different people from totally different backgrounds. Elizabeth has like been through hell for the past 30 years of her life, or, you know, 20 years, I should say. So I don't think it's a string with each other. I think, like you said, they touch foreheads. They're still like acknowledging the mother daughter thing. And I wrote here, do we already know this? Question mark. That episode has happened, right? Where they like hammered it over our heads that they are intertwined as like a perpetual mother daughter, or is that
Yeah, it
that's
was
not
in
coming,
the
is it?
last it was in the well, we know that Elizabeth is Charlotte's mother, because they show us that in the last episode of season 2.
Right. The
Yeah.
pictures, right. So yeah,
Mhm.
okay. I'm just making sure that I'm not getting ahead of myself
No.
because I'm like, yeah, do we already know this? Are we spoiling something here?
Yeah.
Um,
And I guess why I said they feel strained is because Elizabeth comes in and she's definitely looking at her mother and trying to sort of gauge like how she's feeling, and Charlotte's just kind of looking down and not making contact, and she gets up as if she's going to walk out of the room.
mm,
There's a little bit of a disconnect, but then Elizabeth seems to bring her back, and they do this thing where they touch foreheads, which is really cute because that's what they did when we saw them at the school and Charlotte dropped her off and she was wearing the little
mm-hmm,
fox hat. They touched the
mm-hmm.
forehead, so it's their little thing, and that seems to bring them together. But Charlotte was acting a little weird, and I'm sure she's feeling a little disconcerted about everything. But yeah.
Okay, I'll chalk it up to you being a woman and being able to read their emotions better than I, because I didn't sense the tension and those intricacies that you were talking about. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm thank you for pointing that out.
All right. We then cut to 1987. T. Katerina sits at the kitchen table doing her homework. She listens
Oh.
to "Is This Love" by Survivor. What is that?
It's Hopper throwing his bone around. He wants attention tonight.
I thought it was my cat. Was like, what
Nope.
is going on? He's in the room with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I can edit out most of the noises with him. Like
Okay.
while you're talking, I can completely edit everything he does out.
Okay. She listens to "Is This Love" by Survivor. Her mom's comes behind her and smacks her upside the head hard.
Mm,
What was her crime exactly?
exactly.
She then tells her to clear the table. Her voice is shaking with rage. She's flustered by what happened at work, I suppose.
Hmm.
Katerina steals one more worried glance at her mother as she cleans up her homework.
This is a harsh one. Like, yeah, a little peek inside their relationship. Like, it's not a good one.
Mhm.
And we see where the head slap comes from in the Ulrich
Mhm.
family. The Ulrich family. This family, the Nielsen family. It comes from Katerina. Like her mom did this to her when she was a kid. So when she had children, she was like, "Oh, I'm going to do that to my kids too, except for in an affectionate way."
Mhm.
Because she's a little rough with Mickle sometimes. And I remember you would be like, "Oh, she's a kind of an intense mom." And I'd be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, she's funny." I think what it is like, yeah, she's remembering like how she was raised and trying not to mirror that, but putting her own spin on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think you're right too about work. I think maybe she's it's directly related to the fact that she let some woman in when she shouldn't have, and she's beating herself up about it, and then comes in the house and takes it out on Katerina, who is the woman that she let in when she
Mhm.
wasn't supposed to at work. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, but she just
is this
comes in
Survivor
and
that does the
smacks her.
song?
Yeah, I looked it up. Survivor.
Okay.
And no, this is not love. What Helene does to Katerina is not love.
That's right. The song is a question and she answers it.
Yeah. Um so then our montage begins. The track is
Yes.
Broken Sleep by Agnes Obel. We bring back Agnes Obel again.
We like her.
Katerina looks at Ulrich one last time. Middle-aged Claudia comes back home to find Regina dead. Elsewhere, teen Regina looks at the photo of herself with Claudia. Alexander sits next to her to comfort her. Teen Alexander, this is.
Right.
Trant looks at his wife and as she lays in his lap. Elizabeth touches the paper that Noah held, a wisp of connection with another human. Noah lifts rocks in the cave. They have to show him doing something, and he's just, I guess he's working on the Sigmundus tunnel, getting an early start on that bad
He's
boy.
back to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knows this place. That's right.
Yeah. Stranger Jonas comes into Marta's bedroom to find her gone. Alt Marta. Bartosz leads Alt Marta to what will be the elevator shaft going down to the Sigmundus lair.
Now that's our last scene of the show. So I want to back up and just
No, it's not the
just
last episode. It's not the last scene of the show.
oh right, but this I just wanted to mention some of the montage people before we move on to the meat of the scene with Bartosz here.
Sure.
Let's see, what did I want to bring up? Oh, because you are in tune with our ladies here, I want to ask you a woman question.
Mm-hmm.
When Claudia came in and found Regina, did she have like surprise? Was that part of her emotion as well? Surprise, or was it just grief? Or do you remember?
I don't think she expected Regina to be dead. So
Okay, that's interesting.
grief and surprise, both.
All right, got to establish that. And glad that young Alexander's back. He's like a fan favorite, Steve favorite too. So I'm glad he was there to help out Regina when she's young anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't have any other comments about these folks. Did you?
No, it's kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a funny, I don't know, this one's kind of a funny montage. It's just not much happens. It's more of a transition, I feel like, than anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So they walk downstairs. This is Bartosz and Alt Marta. He takes her to the Sigmundus lair before they acquired the Fall of the Damned painting, because there's just this triquetra symbol on almost like a chalkboard, it looks like, but I could be wrong about that. The room looks more like a church with rows of chairs. Marta looks around curiously. She glances at a spot on the floor. She asks Bartosz about the room. He tells her it's a secret lodge that old Tannhouse's father was convinced that he could override the rules of space and time. The group tried to build a time machine, and Gustav is the only member left. Jonas is trying to rebuild things the way he remembers them. He came here in a different time, 1921, and Bartosz then asks about the name Adam. Who is Adam? Bartosz knows that Adam killed Marta, so he's told them, Stranger Jonas has told them, Bartosz, Magnus, and Franziska, part of the truth, but not all. Martha spills the beans that Jonas is Adam.
Nice. It's got to blow Bartosz's mind there because he doesn't know. So it's fun to find out along with him. And this tells us the true origins of Sigmundus. Like he lays it out for us here. Why Gustav is involved and who he's been involved with. If Dark had continued season 4, it would be so cool to go back to 1855, which would be 33 years before 88, and sit in on one of those guys' meetings and hear them talk and pontificate about what could be. And I don't know, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and so we were just talking about before that, Sigmundus started with Gustav. Well, it turns out no, apparently there's somebody before Gustav.
Right.
So who's this father? Yeah.
I want to know too. Go back to 1855 or maybe 1822. If you're going to go back even further, I mean, let's keep doing it, please.
This show is so crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I look while we're still in
Uh,
1888, before we leave
yeah.
1888, um, I went past one of my earlier notes, but I'm going to go back to it now because I looked up what was occurring in 1888, like in Germany at that time. Um, well, Europe specifically. Jack the Ripper was around, like right around this time. They found like three bodies that were later attributed to Jack the Ripper. And also, 1888 was the year that Germany got involved in football. So maybe Stranger Jonas can try out for the Germany football Bulldogs. They were called the Bulldogs. Maybe Jonas could be a good bulldog. I think he would make a good Bartosh. Hell yeah. And Magnus, can you imagine him being like a quarterback or something? Or running back is what he would be, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a football person, honestly, but are you a football person?
I am not.
Yeah, me neither. Good. Charlotte is. She puts on like face paint and stuff to go to football games. Like that's my child. Anyway, we got one more scene to get to.
Okay, we then warp to World 2. Old Eva sits in her version of the sick wounded slayer. She
Cool.
says, "We don't know our end, but our end knows us." She's talking to Teen Jonas. We can indulge in the illusion of free will, but we cannot escape our ultimate destiny. She's got her own grand painting called Adam and Eve by Albrecht Dürer. Laid on the floor is an elaborate family tree with an infinity knot in the center. She tells him that their two worlds are different, but they converge at the same moment. Jonas believed a world without him would be better, but they all still die. The apocalypse happens in her world too, in 3 days, in fact.
Oh.
Jonas looks up in horror. He's like, "What are we doing sitting around here then? Shouldn't we be stopping it?"
I just came from an apocalypse and I get to go to another one in 3 days' time. That means what, episode 5 and 6?
Mm-hmm. And now we've reached the end of the episode, Steve.
Yeah, this last scene was very cool. I like how Dark will do this. So they'll throw you a curveball at the last scene. We have to remember that anytime we see Jonas in World 2, Stranger Jonas does not remember going to World 2. So he doesn't remember this. He doesn't remember this conversation either
Mm-hmm.
that they're having. So I think that's something we got to kind of keep tucked in the back of our minds. Um, this family tree thing is awesome. The family tree between the two worlds, and there's like an infinity knot in the center that ties those worlds together. But then, like, you look at all the names and they're all mirrored. But then, of course, Jonas's name is missing in one of them. And, different family trees. I love looking at pictures of that stuff and just can look at it all day. And when we
Mm-hmm.
were talking about proximity earlier, like how Peter and Elizabeth are like in Bernadette's trailer and where the bunker is in relation to that, in relation to the nuclear power plant, I still really want to see a map of Winden, an overhead view, so I can get a good look at how far things are from other things and how things connect. Um, I have yet to find that. It doesn't exist. So I guess we have to make it if we want it to happen.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, overall, I think my overall thoughts about this episode are that it was a lot more enjoyable this time around just because I was able to slow down and understand things a lot better because I think and we talked about what many of those moments were, but there were several moments in the episode where you're not it doesn't really make sense what you're seeing. And so then when you're able to slow down, you can go, "Okay, this is why Katarina's here.
Mm-hmm.
Where Inez and Mikkel and just making sense of where everybody is in the episode because this episode does jump around a lot. It jumps between worlds, it jumps between times, and like the scene when we see Mad's grave, it took me a bit to go, which world is this? Is
Mm-hmm.
this the world that because we saw them other Mads showed up in World 2 and they actually buried a body, but then they mentioned there is no body. So you're like, okay, then this. But when they're dropping those facts, you're not able to calibrate them in your mind at time to make sense of it. Yeah.
And we still haven't calibrated why Trant showed up, older Trant, and suffocated Regina. That's kind of
Yeah.
out of the blue. That hasn't been resolved yet. So,
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to walk away thinking that is, that's answered, because it's not answered yet.
Yeah. That we sort of talked about that, and maybe we shouldn't. But yeah, that's in my questions that Trant said she told him he needed to kill Regina. Who is
Hmm.
she? We don't really know in this episode who that is.
Right. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with
Yeah.
this one too. More fun than I probably should. I mean, I'm I'm really enjoying this. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know what else to say. I think it's obvious I'm enjoying this. I tell you when I don't like something, and I'm very sincere. So every time, like, you read a paragraph and I'm like, I loved it. I mean, it's because it's true. And
Yeah.
sometimes I don't always have a thoughtful thing to say afterwards. Other than that, I loved it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the other two things on my questions list that I think I'll pull out is that Martha looks at this spot on the floor just like Jonas did. What
Yeah,
happens
I'm
on
glad
the
you remembered that.
spot? I think that's interesting. And then did Jonas actually tell Marta how to find them? Oh, Marta says Jonas told me. So there's possible lies being spread right and left all over the place.
Sure, yeah. We don't know if maybe she could be telling the truth there. We don't know,
Mhm.
because it could be the Jonas that's currently in her world, because she did kind of do a little
Mhm.
switcheroo with them. And
Yeah.
you brought up another, like, mystery to keep in our back pockets too. Oof. And then I just lost it again. Always another mystery to
About the broken
forget.
nose, Ulrich's broken nose. I'll want to know that till the day I die. It's right up there with Waller's eye.
Yeah. And, like, they left it a mystery intentionally, like,
Yeah.
just to mess with us. Let's see. I'm gonna go into who I liked and didn't like in this episode. Um, I'll start with who I liked the least.
Okay.
And once again, it's the murderer. It's the unknown killing Jasmine. He got his pages there. Remember? You said he went to get the key from Burnt and then killed him. Then he went
Mhm.
into Claudia's old office and grabbed some notebooks and stuff. That's what he was there for. So
Mhm.
he really didn't have to kill Jasmine. Didn't have to do it. So bad on you, unknown.
She showed up. She showed up and saw him, so it wasn't. I don't think he would have killed her if she hadn't have walked in on them. So it wasn't like he was out
Well,
to kill
yeah.
Jasmine.
I don't know. I'm just trained to like Jasmine, because she's like, if you feel bad for her as much as Claudia craps on her. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just trained to be defensive of her. How about you? Who's your least?
Okay, Steve. Well, the person I'm going to name is much worse than that old stinky unknown.
Okay.
And, I thought maybe he wouldn't get the vote because he would be so intrigued by his quotes, but I guess not. But my least favorite character is, of course, going to be Helene Albers smacking Katerina
Oh,
around the head
okay.
and saying insulting things to a stranger, that she's a hospital worker and she comes in and says, "Oh, you're one of those people who just wants to marry a psychopath because you can't get anybody else."
Yeah, a systematic abuser is just as bad as a murderer. So, I mean, good call. We'll keep them both side by side. That's How about your favorite? Who you liking a lot this episode?
Well, I think I'm going to have to give my episode favorite award to Katerina.
Okay.
Even though I think she's making some very silly decisions in the way she's walking into the prison and going, "Hey, hey, you," and grabbing people at school, grabbing children at school. Um, her episode, just what she does is so cool. Going to the school, trying to follow the clues, going to the psychiatric hospital, getting her mother the bitch to like to allow her to get to see Ulrich, just knowing those magical words and the way she is so gracious to Ulrich. Here's a man that cheated on her, and she has no malice in her heart towards him. She's just ready to extend grace to him. So I just appreciated her strength and her kindness, I guess. Both of those facets are things I really admire about her.
All right. I was going to say the exact same thing. Yeah, by a landslide. I think she's the most intriguing character this episode. I mean, there was lots of intrigue happening, but she was the one that intrigued me the most too, and I thought nailed it the best. So yeah, I'm a cat man myself too. And I don't know. You talked about how you think like the younger version of Noah is kind of hot. I think the World Two version of Katarina's pretty dope myself. So she gets my
Yeah,
vote.
honorable mention to T Noah this episode because
Okay,
he
okay.
made Elizabeth smile with his cave hole, his cave home.
I, thi- I, I think I'm realizing now. I think the reason that she thinks it's funny is because he's like a caveman. He's she's like he's gone back to prehistoric times. He's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's funny. I
Well, the
just
word is
realized
funny
that.
too. Like I know that's it's for them it's a German word, but the German word for cave is Hole. I don't know if you saw it. It's Hohle. He wrote Hole,
Yes.
and it just was just a funny word to like.
Yeah, maybe that's one of those words that like people chuckle about in Germany when they say it because it sounds funny. Like we have those words in English.
Like moist.
Exactly. Yes. All right. Well, I guess I'm going to get into some feedback now.
Feedback, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to go first or should I go first?
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. I got feedback well, first off, I should give a shout out to Dylan. Dylan's always checking in with us and saying hey, and he definitely liked Lindsay's team better than mine when we made our time travel teams. I don't know if we discussed that last week or not, but it's true, Dylan. Her team's better. But if we do that again, my team will be better. But I promise you that. But we had lots of thoughts from Tash. Tash from South Africa writes in again. Should she say South Africa or South America? It was South Africa, right?
South Africa.
Okay, yeah. I don't want to get her country wrong. Like I get other stuff wrong. All right. So she says, first off, I didn't notice this immediately, and it took a lot of rewinding. Oh, let me first off say Tash is referring to season 3, episode 1. These are her
Mm-hmm.
observations from last week's episode.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't notice, but it appears that the scenes in World 2 were filmed normally and then edited later to be flipped mirrored. Absolutely. I think we talked about that last episode, did we?
Mm-hmm.
Did we
Yes.
mention that? Okay. That's why Martha Two's bed was pushed up against the opposite side of the wall, only it isn't. World 2 mirrors World 1. S- Um, Such a small detail, but it adds so much. She says everything, including the characters' faces, are flipped. So if somebody has like a divot on the left side of their face, it's on the right side of their face in
Mm-hmm.
the other world. She gives an example. She's fascinated about this process, by the way. So she gives an example. Picture yourself in the kitchen facing the stairs and the entrance to the Conwald house. Just did it. In World One, the entrance to the house was always on the left hand side of the screen, and the foot of the stairs was always on the right side of the screen. World Two, completely opposite. Francisca climbs out of the window in this world just as Ulrich did in season 1, episode 1. In this episode, she climbs down the left side of the house, while in season 1, episode 1, Ulrich climbs on the right side of the house. Now, we did notice that parallel, but I did
Mm.
not notice the opposite effect. So I'm glad she brought that up again. Martha's scar and the strap of the bag is on one side in World 1, and as she travels to World 2, it's on the other side. And here we go. The unknown character. The direction of his cleft lip changes between worlds. Does that? I didn't notice that. So I got to pay closer attention to that. Clear milk bottles instead of brown milk bottles. That's
What?
I didn't notice that either.
What? I'm not
Like the
following that.
like the milk bottle they sniff when they come downstairs. In World 2 it's clear instead of brown. Um she says Martha of course mirrors Jonas. She misses Houdini Mickle. She doesn't like the black hair and the tattoos. You're in the minority there, Tash, because we love Magnus's black hair and I want to get back to World 2 and talk to Magnus some more. She says the rotating camera in the kitchen of the former Conrad house is reminiscent of how we're introduced to the Nielsen's in season 1, episode 1. She mentions how Wyndon is foggier and creepier in World 2, while World 1 in Wyndon is clearer but mostly rainy. The colors of the window and door frames in the school in World 1 are yellow. In World 2, they're black. I didn't notice that. Did you?
I need to look back, but I believe the outside of the school in World 2 is actually red, which is interesting, and I didn't not is another
Mhm.
thing that I did not bring up, that I
Yeah,
forgot to
she's
bring
talking
up.
about the doors to the school, but yeah, the school itself was red.
Mhm.
Um, I think she says that right here. I think the school in World 2 could be very big on theater and art in general. And this is why a lot of the students are dressed in costumes. There's an excessive amount of play posters on the wall that say School Theater Week. She says Ulrich is a scumbag in World 2 as well. No surprise there. Hannah's pregnant, all caps, 3 question marks. This cannot be Jonas, however. Mikkel never travels back to the past, so Jonas does not exist in this world. This must be what old Claudia was referring to in season 2, episode 6. She tells Jonas that she doesn't wait. She tells Jonas that she's seen the world where Jonas doesn't exist. So we're back around to that. Ulrich still says he doesn't love Hannah back. 2 chairs on the right side instead of 1. What? She hates the mullet of Bartosz. She has a little hattie face emotion, like emoji, so she doesn't want to look at Bartosz's mullet. She questions whether Killian and Eric were always brothers, which you confirmed they were. Charlotte appears to be more feminine, which we like that. Like she pays more attention to her appearance, and we see why later on. I probably should have proofread this first because I'm going on for a very long time. I'm going to move on to her favorite and her least favorite characters were. Um, oh, here we go. This is interesting. I can't get past this one because I like it. The reason that Martha 2 sees Martha 1 covered in the black liquid, which I'm assuming is the God particle, is because she is very in tune with and feels Martha 1, just as you mentioned in your recap. It's why she has this feeling of deja vu, the same way that Mikkel 2 can also feel Mikkel 1, and why they both have nightmares. So now for favorite character, she says Jonas. We both agreed it's Jonas. The whole world agreed that the best character of that episode was Jonas, I think. Oh, wait, I'm thinking of season 2, episode 6, but she says season 3, episode 1, Jonas was her favorite. She says Louis Hoffman keeps getting better and better. Beautiful. Um, her least favorite, Ulrich 2. So, yeah, nobody's like an Ulrich in either world. And yeah, that was our recap corner from Tash from last episode, and I think she's going to keep on writing us some feedback coming up. You have feedback too that you got on one of my stories, right?
Well, I have a question and then I have a feedback also. So the question was actually left about season 2, episode 2. So it's a little bit of an old question, but I thought it was a good question that I hadn't noticed either. He mentions, or they mention, whoever the person who wrote this, a bit confused as to how it's 5 days until the apocalypse in 1987 wasn't the apocalypse in 2020. So during the episode, there's a scene that happens and it's in 1987, but it says 5 days until the apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
So here's how I answered that question. I'd love to hear how you would answer it too, Steve. So
Okay.
I said the apocalypse happens chronologically in 2020. I'm guessing that this 5 days until the apocalypse means that. Sorry, 5 days until the apocalypse marker means that across the timeline loop, it's 5 days until the apocalypse. For instance, middle aged Claudia is from 1987. Yes, she travels with Jonas to 2020 and encounters the apocalypse. So, also the actual explosion, even though the actual explosion happens in 2020, it is triggered in 1987. We don't
Mm-hmm.
see this in the show until season 3. But when things happen, they happen across all timelines. When we see the apocalypse occur at the end of season 2, things happen in each time period, so they are using this to give us a sense of how close we are to that event. It's an omnipresent view to time travel as if we are God. So remember when the apocalypse happened, we saw older Francisca and Magnus pulling a lever in 1921. We saw things happening in 1987. We saw things happening in 2020. So even though these things are divided by 33 years, all these people, they're doing this whole, I feel like they're doing it 5 days into the apocalypse because they're also following the calendar year. So we see like September 22nd in 1987. It's also September 22nd in 2020. So I thought it was a great question for them to say 5 days until the apocalypse, but it's in 1987. And I did go back to that episode to watch it to say like, okay, what are they remembering this correctly? It's what I had in my recap, but also it is what they wrote 5 days until the apocalypse, even though it's 1987. So yes, technically it's 5 days and 33 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is this making sense to you? What I'm saying? Do you agree with me, or do you see that differently?
No, especially the very last thing you said.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing I was going to say. It's
Mm-hmm.
a 33-year cycle, and the apex of that cycle is the apocalypse. So
Right.
even though we're in 1987 timeline, it's 5 days until that 33-year cycle reaches its apex, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's 1954, 87, etc. Like every 33 years, you're going to get 5 days until the apocalypse, and then it's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, but for Claudia, she time traveled to 2020, and so as she got closer to it, she was in another time period. So for someone like Claudia, it was 5 days, even though she traveled. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great question though.
Well, I think, yeah, it's kind of made murky, like you were saying
Yeah.
about how Magnus throws the switch, because like a
Hmm.
lot of significant things happen during that apex, and they always kind of have to happen. It seems they're perpetuated to happen. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, we're just repeating that same cycle every 33 years, and every time period is within its own 33-year cycle.
Hmm. And then in the Dark Ways group, we had somebody chime in about um the episode that it was heartbreaking. Ted Shaw is the person's name. It was heartbreaking when Marta says to Jonas, "I'm not your Marta." That actually happened. That actually happened in episode 1, but then we do see Stranger Jonas telling Bartosz, Francisca, and Magnus, "Oh, by the way, this isn't Marta." So he
Hmm.
said that that was really sad, and I agreed with him. And then he said, that that was the moment that he became Adam inside, which I don't agree with. And we put a discussion thread on Facebook that there's a few other things that happen. He's not quite atomized here, but he does get crushed because you see
Hmm.
him absolutely deflate when he sees Marta. He's so happy to see her. He touches her face, and then she's like, I'm not your Marta. And then you see him just deflate like a balloon.
Yeah, like what? Another thorn in my back now. What? I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm confused yet again, is what he's thinking.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
were
that's
you
it.
okay, I didn't know if you were gonna read any of our response comments because we both had different ideas of where Adam
We
Adam's, what do you call it,
did.
his
Some of
origin
these,
story.
yeah, some of these might be spoilers to talk about.
Oh, that's right. Mine are, for sure.
Yeah, and mine really are too. Um, but I think we can all agree that the 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 journey from Jonas to Adam has many pit stops along the way. Some of them which we've already seen, like one that you mentioned, Steve, is that Marta getting killed in front of Jonas is
Mhm.
definitely one of those key events. Um, so yeah, but it is sad. This moment is sad. I agree with Ted about that. So, and we were excited to get a comment in the Dark Ways group about our upcoming recording too.
Yeah, heck yeah. Well, we got an upcoming recording next week as well, but I think we're ramping down for this week. Yeah, do you have any plugs or any final thoughts for us, Lindsay?
Plugs and final thoughts. Um, well, I have published Anatomy of a Fall and The Holdovers double feature review. I am in
Mhm.
process. I need to finish editing the Hunger Games movie and the new Napoleon. So hopefully those will be
Mm.
out very soon.
I'm interested to see Napoleon. I watched The Killer, wasn't fully impressed with it.
Hmm.
But it was okay. It was fun. Good soundtrack.
Yeah,
Um,
wasn't a complete waste of time.
yeah, yeah, I agree with that.
And
That's not really high praise, is it?
well, I mean, some movies you're like, why did I waste time watching that? There's
Uh-huh.
a million things to watch. But I feel like it's always good to see a David Fincher movie. I don't feel like
Right.
I wasted my time. It was interesting. I thought it was entertaining enough. It's not going to win any awards.
Who
One more
knows? Maybe. I don't know.
one more shout out though is that if you want to see August Deal, who plays the middle-aged unknown in a completely different role,
Mhm.
of course, there's all the light you cannot see, but he's playing a Nazi. So he's again a bad guy. He just has other lines besides quotes. But you could also watch A Hidden Life, which is a Terrence Malick picture, beautiful,
Mm.
where he plays a conscientious objector from Austria who refuses to swear allegiance to Hitler. He was in the war in World War I, and then when World War II starts, he finds he just can't. He's more than happy to go to the front and fight for his country, but he doesn't want to swear allegiance to Hitler. And based on
Mm.
that principle, he refuses to do that. And so he has to keep standing up for his values, even though everybody in his town and community and eventually the government are all against him and trying to get him to
Mm.
just say these words. Why does it really matter?
Mhm.
But he decides to stand up. So it's a very different role for him and quite surprising because I've seen this movie before, but I wouldn't have been able to get from watching Dark that this was the same character. He almost looks like his face looks like completely different. And of course, he has the cleft lip and all that
Mhm.
facial disfigurement, but he plays a very kind, gentle farmer in this movie. So it's
Cool.
very against type.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, I know he's not a terrible guy. He just plays a terrible character, that's all. And yeah, I got my new thing now for you. I can listen to his quotes and I can also look for his cleft lip and see like which
Which
side it's on.
side?
Yeah, so that'll be new things to distract myself when he comes on screen. Well, I guess I don't have any really plugs this week. It's Thanksgiving week, so we'll be concentrating on that and I hope everybody enjoyed listening to this for your Thanksgiving time. Um I guess my closing thoughts. I had one that went away, Lindsay. That's happening a lot this episode. This dog is distracting me. uh oh yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to plug your website, one of my stories. You might be listening to this on the One of My Stories podcast. And if that's the case, check out her written recaps because you pick the best images to go along with the show. A lot of times when I look up images for the shows, I'll like just type in dark season 3 episode 2 and then the character I want to look at a picture of. A lot of times it leads me right to your website. Well, I think the algorithm like knows that I go to
Mm-hmm.
your website frequently.
Yeah.
But yeah, your photos that you choose are the best ones and they're at good clarity so they make for good you know, good pics. Do it up.
you can make you can make memes with them if you want to.
Yeah, that's what I've done with them.
Well, thank you, Steve. Appreciate the plug.
Right on. Well, happy Thanksgiving, Lindsay. I hope you have a good one.
Happy Thanksgiving, Steve, and I hope you find water and shade and whatever Thanksgiving side dish you like the best.
Okay. Oh, nice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's mashed potatoes. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And for you and all the listeners, I hope you all find water and shade and shoes. Bye.
Bye-bye.